This is an episode of How to Get Hired with me, Bill, the company's expert, where we're going to be doing a Q&A, and I'm going to be taking your questions about anything to do with unemployment or getting a career or job search or job interviews or resume writing or offers or salary negotiation or anything like that. That's what we're going to be talking about here. And the title of today's episode to kick us off is How AI Affects Job Search. And if you were with me this morning, we were kind of talking a little bit about that already. We were talking about AI. And because I know a lot of people are talking about this, a lot of people are super concerned about it. And just to kick things off, we're going to get into it. But I will be taking questions in a moment. So AI, as a lot of you guys know, AI is your friend and your foe when you are dealing with how to get a job. There's a lot of tools that are out there, and you are also sometimes going up against AI in the competition for getting an interview and then getting selected. So we're going to be talking about all of that. Now, this is about measures and countermeasures, right? AI is here and they can help us to hack the system, as it were. But also employers are increasingly using AI to try and undo that hacking as a countermeasure to try and equalize that advantage that we might have. If you are joining me today, it says there are 12 people here, so thank you for this. Sorry for the kerfuffle earlier. I'm not sure if my original link for this live stream still works, but we're just going to get on with this regardless. And if you have any questions, post those in the chat, and I will try and help you out if I can. Yes. So a lot of people fear that this is like the end of everything. It's the end of the world. AI is here and they're replacing everybody. And that just isn't true. Having lived through several of these truly disruptive changes in my lifetime, it goes, and I'm pretty sure it's going to go the same way that every other major disruptive change has, which is that it's not the end of the world. And it drives the world forward, and some things change, but overall, it's a positive thing. Okay. What tends to happen is if it's a change that happens very suddenly, it can be a negative for a lot of people. If it's a change that happens a bit more gradually, we wouldn't even be talking about it like it's a problem, because it wouldn't be a problem. It would simply be a 100% positive thing. So a lot of it depends on how quickly the change occurs. But it's not the be-all. AI is not the be-all, end-all for getting a job. They won't be replacing people. And certainly in hiring, it's not going to affect that much until eventually AI replaces people completely. You know what I mean? And that's not going to happen anytime soon. When that happens, put it this way, robots and AI will be combined for companies not to need people anymore to make money. And we're quite far off from that. An expression I've heard a lot, a little buzz catchphrase, is that people hire people. And that's true. That's absolutely true. You can manipulate your way to get your resume on top of the pile, but at the end of the day, they're hiring you as a person. Okay. So even if you falsify everything to claim that you are the greatest person who ever lived, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because you wouldn't be able to pass an interview and back that up. That's the idea. Okay. AI is a useful tool, though, and we're going to be talking today about some of the tools that we all have at our disposal, and whether they make sense to use. Okay. You can look at Google as an analogy here. When Google came out, it was tremendously disruptive, but it's a very useful tool. And today we use it as a tool. I don't know if it's as useful as it was, but it's certainly still around, and it's still something that people use to start their web browsing session, put it that way. We still use it a lot for a lot of dumb work, basically, right? Okay. Now, the first question in relation to job search is, are you using AI to get past a machine, or are you using AI to get past a human, right? That's the first kind of thing that we're wondering here. Are you targeting a person or are you targeting a machine? And it's like two separate discussions on like how useful it is. For example, if you are doing the application process for an online job, for an internet posted job, usually you go through some form of AI. They ask you a bunch of questions, and then sometimes they may require that you enter practically your whole resume into various fields, manually, which is super annoying. Everybody loves, but that's a form of AI. Usually the questions they ask you, they say, do you need more than this amount of money? Or, do you have skills in this area? Yes or no? Usually those are sudden death elimination questions. So if you answer no to any of those or yes to any of those, you've just eliminated yourself, and the system stops your application right there. It doesn't proceed any further. That's usually why those questions are singled out and made separate things that you have to go through, because they eliminate you. It's a pass-fail thing. Okay? And you can tell, like if it says, do you have this skill? This skill that they've said on their job posting that we need. It's a requirement that you have this skill. And then they ask you as a separate yes or no question, do you have the skill? That usually means that they're doing an elimination of your application based on the answer. So if you say, no, I don't have that skill, the whole thing ends there, and your application does not go any further. It doesn't even get seen by a human. Okay? Okay, so that's kind of the basic stuff. Other things that I haven't really talked about before on this channel are like resume evaluation tools or resume optimization tools that are based on AI. There's a number of these that we have access to online. Some are free, some are paid, but you can submit your resume to these sites, and then they use AI to try and fix it up or try and suggest improvements. Now, personally, I haven't tried any of those. I really don't think there's much value there, other than like beyond absolute basic stuff. Where the real value may lie is in the automation side of it. Okay, so for example, one of the things that if you are playing the game of applying for jobs online, internet posted jobs, like hopefully the way to succeed at that game is to customize your resume pretty much for almost every single job you apply for. The most important element there is using their lingo. Okay, so the words that they use to describe certain things. Usually there's more than one term for the things that they're talking about. So if they're looking for certain words, which a lot of ATS software does, you want to make sure you're using those same words to describe the skills and experience and education that you have, right? So you need to use their lingo. So that's something that's very labor intensive. I mean, you could apply easily for 100 jobs in a day, but could you customize your resume to have 100 different custom versions of your resume in a day? No, it's very labor intensive. So some online AI-based resume optimization software, it can do that, which enables you to apply for more jobs with custom resumes. That's actually useful if you want to play that game. If you're going for internet posted jobs and you're playing that game, these tools can help you, and that's an example of one. Okay, so so if this is interesting to you, it's a tool you want to use. Do a Google search for online resume evaluation tools or online resume optimization tools, and a lot of different options will pop up, and you can check out some of those. I know other people have done videos on what they think of the different software, but so you could check those out, or you could just try the software directly. Usually it exists within a web page, so it's all online. There's also tools to auto-generate job applications. I thought this was actually pretty interesting. So what it can do is it automates the process of applying for a lot of jobs. So you tell it kind of what job titles and things you're interested in what region, and what it'll do is it'll go out and it'll actually, armed with your resume and some information about you, it'll go and submit the actual job applications to a lot of online jobs. Now, I just want to say, I think if you want to be successful in your job search, this is not the game you should be focusing on. Instead, you should be reaching out to potential employers and reaching out to the individuals at those employers, which you can access between Google Maps and LinkedIn. You can find out the companies, you can find out the individuals in the companies that are in certain key positions, and you should reach out that way. That's far more promising, far more successful, and you have a far more positive experience getting jobs that way. Extroverts and introverts, you have a far more positive experience, and it's far more forthcoming than playing this game of submitting applications to internet posted jobs. But if you do want to play this game, tools to auto-generate job applications, they're here and they exist, and you may want to check those out if you still want to play in that game. Now, you can see what this is doing, right? It's going out and applying to hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of jobs on your behalf. Now, you're not the only one using the software. A lot of people are using it too. And this is further serving to increase the volume of applicants that a lot of the employers are receiving towards their jobs. Okay, so when they post jobs and those jobs are real, they're legitimate, they're getting a lot more volume now because of tools such as this. So it's a cat and mouse kind of game. You have measure and countermeasure. So their filters are becoming more strict to try and detect this and possibly eliminate people that are doing this. Okay. And then obviously we have the elephant in the room, which is ChatGPT. Right? So ChatGPT, if you're one of the 5 people that have never used that, check it out. Do a Google search for ChatGPT and start using it. And this has all kinds of powerful applications. It will generate text. So it can write cover letters, it can write text strings, it can write posts, it can write all kinds of things that you might need in your job search process. Some people go the route where they sort of almost send spam emails out to lots of address. I mean, it can generate the text of the emails and all this kind of stuff. So, it's useful for stuff like that if that's the game you want to play. Once again, at the end of the day, I don't recommend that you play in this game because it's ultimately self-defeating. You got the same number of people, which is a lot, chasing the same number of jobs in this place, the online posted jobs on the internet, which is not that much, right? About 20% of jobs are actually posted. And those 20% of jobs, they're being competed for by 80% of the candidates out there, right? So you've got 80% of the people competing for 20% of the jobs. The other 80% of the jobs that are out there are not posted, and you access those through networking. And the way you do this, whether you're an extrovert or an introvert, is, I like to call it networking on demand. It's where you don't know a lot of people in a lot of positions at companies in your industry. You don't know them. You don't have any kind of relationship with them. But what you do is you discover who those people are, and then you reach out to them for the purposes of your job search. Okay? So if you don't have a big network of people, that's okay. You don't need a big network of people. No matter how big your network is, it won't be big enough to know enough people to really, guarantee to find yourself a job through networking. You have to reach out to people cold. And you don't have to do this in person. You don't have to do this over the phone if those aren't your deal, you could do it over social networking and other ways too. So that's the way I recommend that you go. But if you don't want to do that and you want to be one of the 80% of people that's competing for 20% of the jobs, if you're playing that game, some of these AI tools are very, very useful. Like I just said, ChatGPT, where it really shines is being able to use it to write cover letters. And the way it usually goes is that you use ChatGPT to write you a generic cover letter, and then you manually go and, tweak a couple of things to make it a bit more individualistic, have a bit more character rather than super generic. And you can easily generate cover letters and things like that on demand. Okay? So that's what I have to say about AI. This is a Q&A. Now, hopefully my software is working. If you have a question about getting a job, about being a job seeker, how to get hired, any of that, if you see my face, you should see a chat box nearby. Get in the chat box. Let me know what you're wondering, what you're struggling with, what challenges you're facing, and I will try and help you if I can. I'm just going to try and pull up my own YouTube channel to see if this feed is actually live. Yep, it looks like it's live, and it looks like it has the right title, so that's good. After that technical kerfuffle I had. Yeah, I'd like to hear from you guys. Let me know what you're dealing with. I do these live streams every week, and this one I've been doing for a very long time, actually. And what are we at? This is episode number 72. So let me know what you're dealing with. Now, okay, great. So we're in a situation where I can see that there's a chat feed on the actual, wonderful, on the actual YouTube channel, but it's not showing up in my software. So if you just bear with me for a second, I have to follow this off the chat feed here. Okay. So Pearl is here. Hello to Pearl. Thank you for being here. And April is here also. Okay, great. So you guys can hear me. Okay. Mr. Friendly says, the current AI will affect us for all for the better. Well, it won't affect everyone for the better. There are a tiny amount of jobs that will go away. If your job can be completely automated by AI, what usually happens is those jobs gradually disappear, right? Now, that's a very small amount. Okay, that's practically negligible. With any change that comes out, the world is constantly moving forward, constantly updating itself. So this is happening continually. And this change we'll see a little bit of a spike for that, but I mean, it really won't be the end of the world. Some people will be affected, but I don't want to say it will affect everyone in a positive way. But for the overwhelming majority of people, we will get a new tool, we will get more capabilities. So it's ultimately a positive thing. Like most disruptive innovation has been over the last, certainly in the last 40 years, like where I've been around for. Pearl sends a super chat. Hello, Bill. Just want to say thanks once again for your time and efforts. Your channel has really been of help. Thank you, Pearl. That's very, very kind of you, and I really do appreciate it. It's really awesome to get that kind of show of support from people, and that's one of the reasons I do this. That's why I've not reinvented, but I've rehashed the idea of maybe doing 2 super chats every 2 live streams every Monday. I'm going to try that. Today it hasn't gone smoothly from a technical point of view, but hopefully I will be able to change that in the future. FNKSHN. That rolls off the tongue. Says, lots of buzz about AI and HR, but good to remember it's only a tool. I think we all get worked up about technology replacing human input, but AI will only assist at this stage of development. Of course. A lot of that stuff is always blown out of proportion. It's always blown out of proportion by the media because they want to make it into a story, right? The reality is every innovation, every step forward changes things. And unfortunately, it can be a negative change for people. It can eliminate your job potentially, right? Yes, but the world moves forward. We can do things more efficiently. We have new capabilities we didn't have before. I've lived through several of these so far. I remember when the internet came out, like when it first really started to become a thing and people started to talk about it. I was actually a little bit ahead of the curve. I got on the internet in 1995. I think most people really took over like 1996, 97. But I got email and stuff. I was emailing people in 95, possibly in 94. I can't remember. And, back then people were predicting it was the devil. It would eliminate everything. All the negative aspects of humanity would propagate via the internet unchecked and roam wild, which it kind of has. But it would be like the end of the world. That's what they all thought, right? Google then made the internet useful. It was another big change. And then social networking, then once again, it was like people can actually publish their own stuff. That was a huge change. And then now you have AI. Each time, everybody predicts it's like the end of the world, and it never is. And if you go back to the Industrial Revolution, like that's what happened. Every time somebody said, like, let's actually get a machine to do this work instead of doing it manually, you got riots, you got protests, you got everybody thinking it would be the end of the world, and it wasn't. And it actually was a positive thing. And that's just how things go. We need to lose our fear of it. User says, I agree. Teal might be helpful for someone who needs help from writing, but if you can write, you really don't need it. Yeah, it's a tool. It's like spell check, grammar check, all that kind of stuff. Word processors in the first place, software that, you can go back and delete and insert lines. Like, imagine trying to do that stuff on a typewriter, right? When I started that, it was like typewriters. And then you had those like stupid little, it's like a hybrid halfway between a typewriter and a computer. It's like, I forget what they call them, but people would carry them around, and then if you wanted everyone to think you were some kind of screenwriter, you'd like walk down the street with like that under your arm. You know what I mean? Like, try going back to that and see how you feel about it. I use AI to help me customize my resumes. Yeah, we were talking about that. That's a thing you can do now. How do you find the hiring manager for a company? Okay, I'm going to give you a short answer. But if you want the long answer that really shows you all the concepts, how everything works, all the principles, what's at play, it's in that course. Okay, there's a link in the description. But I'm going to give you a short answer. Okay. Oh, and I've actually done a video where I walk you through it on my desktop. So you see my desktop and you see me actually doing this. And it's called How Successful People Get Jobs. And I believe, if I've played my cards right, that there is a link to it also in the description box. So I'm not trying to encourage you to turn off the live stream and go and watch that, but check that out because that's where I walk you through it so you can see it all visually as I'm saying it. Yes, it is a link in the description box in this video. It's called How Successful People Get Jobs. Okay, so the short answer is if you want to find, like here's the easiest thing you can do to do this, okay? The first problem most people have is finding out what employers are around them, are physically around them. So if you live in a city, and maybe the city is big, so commuting from one end of the city to the other side of the city might not be practical. It'll take you like 2 hours to drive there. It might not be practical to do that every day. So what you're looking for is, and I'm, for simplicity, I'm taking remote work, like purely remote work out of the equation, just to do this. You would want an employer that's within, say, an hour's drive of where you live, depending on your transportation situation. Okay. If you have to walk, it makes it even more critical that they're near you. So the first question is like, what employers are physically near me that could make use of my skills? They could conceivably employ me, right? So you're first looking for a list of employers, okay, and their contact information. So the way you do that is with Google Maps, okay? If you go to Google Maps and you type in the name of your city and then you hit Maps, you'll see a map of your city. When you see the map of your city, there'll be a search box on the side and you can enter in industries. You could say graphic design, you could say textiles or textile manufacturing or apparel or clothing, you know, something like that. If you're a salesperson, you're looking for retail, you type in retail. And what it's going to do is all the businesses are going to pop up on the map. And as they pop up with a little dot, you can click on the dot and you can see their contact information, their name, their website, their address, right? So if you just stopped there, if you didn't go any further, you just did this first step, seeing these employers and then having a link to their website, you could, for each of these employers, you could go to their website and you could check out if they have any jobs posted and apply to the job on their website. That would be probably the simplest possible thing you could do, right? But we're talking about networking, and that's not really what we want to do here. What we want to do is we want to connect with somebody. So now that we have a list of employers, okay, let's say we've done a search for textiles, and that yielded 30 results in our corner of the city. And then we did another search for clothing, and that yielded another 20 unique results for our corner of the city. And then we did another search for, we did textiles, we did clothing, apparel, right? Apparel sales or something like that. And that yielded another 10 unique employers in our corner of the city. So now we have like 50 or 60, a list of 50 or 60 potential employers. Now we go over to a tool like LinkedIn. Okay, now LinkedIn is like the Facebook of business. I know a lot of you guys are on LinkedIn. Some of you may not be, but if you've never heard of it, it's sort of like Facebook, but it's for business people. So it's to deal with getting a job and connecting with people at other companies. And, your profile basically is a version of your resume. Okay. And just like Facebook, you can connect with like friends, right? So that you can see their entire profile. But there's also a sort of public version of a profile where you don't have to connect with them. Or LinkedIn loves to like sell you these paid services where, you pay them like $30 a month or something, and then they allow you to see everything. You could see people that you're not connected to. You could see all their information. You could do that. Occasionally they give you a free offer and they say like, try the paid version free for a month, something like that. So you can make use of those and use all the features. So now that we have a list of companies and we know that like those or employers, like it could be the government or something, it's not a company, but they're in your hometown, okay? And you know their name and you know that they're nearby, right? You could then search for that company on LinkedIn. And when you find the company, you can look inside the company to see the individuals. So in that company that employs, say, 100 people, you've got maybe 10 people that are on LinkedIn and they're high up in the company. So they're the owner, the CEO, maybe the heads of different departments, right? Okay. Maybe some people in the middle or lower down, okay? And then you reach out to them. Now, there's a variety of ways you could do it, okay? This is probably good for a short answer. That illustrates the idea. So if you came armed with a list of, say, 50 or 60 companies, and then you started looking up those companies on LinkedIn and sending friend requests or, there's sending in some kind of message or contact request, something like that, you would be sending that out to like hundreds of people. right? At each company, on average, you could say there might be 3 to 5 people there that are at the top, okay, which is the people you want to go to. And because they have the power to hire people, and they also have the time to take unsolicited requests from the public, which people in the middle and people at the bottom don't. That's not their job. Whereas people at the top, it is their job. A lot of times, I mean, that's how companies partner with other people. How do you think they make contact? A lot of times it's over tools like LinkedIn. Sometimes you meet people in person at conferences, but that's not reliable. You usually reach out to them over tools like LinkedIn. So that's why people at the top, they take these requests because it can turn out to be institutional customers. It turns out to be the press. It turns out to be, potential suppliers, regulators, all this type of thing. So you connect with them that way. And you don't have to do anything weird. You just send out a generic message like saying, hey, here I am. I'm a computer programmer. I do this really, really well. If ever you're looking for a computer programmer, let me know. You guys are a great company and I'd love to work for you. Have a nice day. Something like that. Now, the majority of the time, you're not going to hear back because they're not looking for a computer programmer right now, right? The time doesn't really match up. They hire a lot of computer programmers, but not right at the moment, okay? But a certain percentage of people will, just by serendipity, they'll be happening to look for a computer programmer right now, and you happen to be looking for a job right now, right? So when you land, when your message lands in their lap and they say, hey, I'm a great computer programmer. I'm looking for a job. I do this really well. I know that you guys are a company that does great work in this area. I'd love to work for you. Let me know if you're ever looking. They go, hey, maybe I'll contact that person. The other thing is that the fact that you've reached out to them, that signals a couple of things about you. It signals that you're serious and you have the initiative and therefore desire to honestly want to work for them because you're doing this. How many people do this? Not many. They get a lot more resumes than they get people doing this. And I could go on about this, but this is basically the way you can use to access these jobs. Now, they know they need to hire someone. They haven't gotten around to posting the job yet. What you might not know is that posting a job and, promoting it and getting someone to sort through resumes, getting someone to sit in job interviews to narrow down candidates, that's all very expensive. That's what you might not know. So if you can avoid all that, if you're an employer and you can avoid all that, but get a good candidate, get a good employee, someone who is genuinely wanting to do that type of work and they're good at it and they're professional. If you could get that person without having to go through that manually labor-intensive process, which is very expensive, and I know because I've hired people to do that for me, this is a real bonus for you. You've also gotten a sample of this candidate's communication skills in that little note they sent. And if it makes you want to respond to it, that shows even more abilities that this person has. They're a great salesperson. They're very professional. They're very personable. These kind of sound like the person you might want to employ. So before you even meet this person, you've got a sample of their capabilities. And that already puts you above all the people that have just sent in resumes. You've actually interacted with this person. So this is by far the best way to get a job. And you don't have to take my word for any of this. If you do your research, you will see that networking by far is the way that most people get hired, some form of networking. And 70 to 80% of all the jobs that are actually out there, they're there, but they're not posted because they're being filled by networking before you need to post them. That's the idea. Okay, so this is good news for people because it means that if you haven't gotten anywhere fast in just applying to internet job postings, there's a whole gold mine of other opportunities out there that you're not seeing that you could put yourself up for if you wanted to. Okay, getting back to the feed here. That took me a long time to answer, didn't it? That's the very short version, though. You can see why I put that into a course. Like that's fully covered in this course. You need a course to go through all the aspects of it. You can't do it in a video. Okay. Pretty obnoxious. That's somebody's name or somebody's handle. With hiring managers using AI to crush the majority of candidates and while jobs are at an all-time low, how do we survive this recession? Is it a recession? I don't know. I guess it depends what country you're in. First of all, I could understand you thinking like that if you're just going after online jobs, because there's a lot of, like I was saying before, measures and countermeasures. Now that people are using AI to like automatically apply to thousands of jobs on their behalf, you're getting even more applications for these online jobs. They're getting even more. Like if you're, instead of being 1 in 300, now you're like 1 in 1,000 or something, and some of those jobs are fake. They're not real. They're just, it's a really kind of underhanded way of companies doing research into the labor market. Like they want to see how many people would want to work at this job if we posted it. So you just go ahead and post a job. It's not real. You're not intending to hire anyone. You're just wanting to receive applications just to see the skills that people have and how many of them there are and all this kind of stuff, like whatever you're wondering. So, like I think it's kind of, it preys upon the ignorance of a lot of people, especially younger people. And so for that reason, I think it's very, it's kind of unethical. But a lot of those jobs are not real. And you see them being reposted and reposted and reposted. It's like nobody ever gets hired. That's maybe one tip off right there. That's one reason for it. But there's actually a lot of jobs. It's just that they're not being posted. And why would you post them? Like, think of the perspective of an employer. Why would you post a job knowing that the moment it goes live, it's going to get pounced on by tons of AI software that is just like spamming it with like all these applicants, and the applicants themselves, if their job application is being submitted by AI, they don't even know they're being put forward for that job. So they don't have any particular affinity for that company, or, what I mean? Like, why would you look at any of those people? You know what I'm saying? Unless you were desperate, you got to find someone and you can't find anyone. It's just spam. It's the same reason that, you put your email address out there and you get like all this junk mail about, do you want to enter in this lottery, or can I sell you some used shoes, or, you know what I mean? Like, it's the same thing. So it's just a very bad way of going about getting a job, unfortunately, because you're going in with all this spam. And the system on the other end, unbeknownst to you, is now tailored to like look for spam, and look for anything that isn't ideal, because it got 1,000 candidates, 1,000 applicants. So you can afford to start reading somebody's application, and then the moment something comes up that you weren't really expecting or specifically wanting, you just dismiss that applicant and move on to the next one, right? Because you got 1,000. And it's not being read by a human, because by the time a human can read 1,000 resumes properly, it'd be like a week or something, at the earliest. So it's just not a very good way to get a job. As we go into the future, it becomes even like every year, it seems to get worse and worse and worse. There's too many hoops you got to jump through. Okay, where was I here? How do you survive? Well, you survive by not trying to win at that game. You play a different game, okay? And as I said, what I would recommend is some form of networking. It's actually a lot easier than you think. when I say it, some people assume that you need to just know a million people. Wrong. Some people assume that you have to reach out in person or cold call somebody. Wrong. It's just another tactic. It's just another procedure. You could do it remotely, just like you do when you apply for jobs over job boards. You do it remotely, and then you have a personal interaction when you get an interview. It's exactly the same process. You do it remotely until they call you in and say, like, let's get together and talk, and then you meet them in person. But the difference is that they've invited you down to a meeting. You know, you didn't force yourself on anyone. They invited you in. So it feels like a referral. It's a lot more pleasant experience. Usually it's a lot more forthcoming too. Okay, Ryan R. says, those who can use AI to augment their work will get ahead. Some will, yes. A lot of people, they won't. Like, okay, who runs companies, for example? Who's in charge of a lot of companies? Usually it's people my age and older, right? You're in your 50s and up. You think those people are going to be jumping on like the latest AI tools? Of course not. It's because what they do to get promoted and to get new jobs at that level, you don't need it, and you won't need it because it's all based on personal interaction, right? Now, the sooner you learn this stuff, the sooner you put yourself forward for not only the jobs that you're looking for, maybe at the lower or mid-level, but also at a slightly higher level too. Because to get to a higher level, you're going to need to know this stuff. You're like, ever since I've been around, like in the 1980s to today, you've needed those skills to be in the sort of upper levels. So the sooner you learn them, the further you'll go, right? What better way to learn them now? Especially when you're being forced to learn them. Sometimes some people need to be forced out of their comfort zone, just a little, but it's a lot easier than you think. Okay, I'm a technical introvert. I can say this stuff. I get that some people have social anxiety and the word networking freaks them out. It's actually a lot easier than you think. Anyway, I'm not here to sell you that. I'm just saying that that's the honest answer to some of these questions. Okay, user says, when reaching out to a hiring manager when there is no known job opening in his company, would it help if I add an analysis and suggestions on their process or tactics? I think it's unnecessary. Because if you don't even know what their needs are, but you take it upon yourself to like offer a solution, how would you react if someone did that to you? I don't know anything about you, but I've got what you need. It's like, well, that's kind of borderline insulting saying that. And doing an analysis from outside the company, do you really think that's going to be more prescient and more insightful than what they already know about their own company from the inside? You really think so? Now, if the answer is yes, I mean, maybe in some situations the answer might be yes. But I think as a general rule, just you're asking generally, I don't think it's necessary. Like, I think it's far more practical to say, like, look, I'm here. I solve this problem really well. Now, if ever you need that problem solved, give me a call because I'd love to work for you. Okay? I know you guys do great work in this area. I'd love to work for you. If ever you need those, that done for you, or you're looking for someone, give me a call. Now, if they're not looking for someone that can do that, why persist in like why do a bunch of analysis work for them? That doesn't help you. It's just extra work you got to do. If they are looking for someone with your skills that can solve the problems that you solve, then it's worth pursuing it further. And what I'd recommend is that you first talk to them and you ask them questions like, what's the biggest challenge that you're facing? Where do you think things are going? You're lucky if you can get sort of honest answers with stuff like that. They're not going to tell you, they're not going to answer honestly if you ask them, like, what's the biggest thing that you're doing that you're lagging behind your competitors and that you could use help with. They're not going to answer that honestly, right, to you or to anyone in the public domain. They want to keep that secret, right? So So for that reason, just my gut feeling, my opinion is like some stranger giving me an analysis of like what would help me. I just dismiss it like I do any sales material. Because people will say, we've analyzed your situation and we've determined that you need our product. I mean, how seriously do you take that? Right? You just dismiss it because, first of all, I don't believe that you know what's right for me. There's obviously a conflict of interest. You want me to buy your thing. You're going to say anything to get me to do it. So I don't trust this analysis you've done. Right? So that would be my answer to that. I'm not saying you would never do this. It's just that in most situations, it seems like you're putting the cart before the horse and it's unnecessary. That's my personal take. Deborah Groovy says, I had an AI interview last week. I have heard nothing. Should you send a thank you to the company for an AI interview? That depends on you. It doesn't hurt, but I don't know how much good that really does. Okay, so if you're really worked to the bone and you're pressed for time and you're applying to all these jobs, then your time could be more productively spent doing other things. But in the absence of anything else, I would say give yourself the best chance you can. You did invest in the time to do the interview. It would be a shame if you couldn't just take 2 minutes to do this one extra little thing that might have put you over the top. You don't know. So you've got to work on odds, right? What are the odds that this helps? I wouldn't send it to a generic email address or a generic AI thing. I would send it to a person and say thank you for selecting me to do the initial interview. I hope we'll be seeing more of each other and I look forward to hearing back. Have yourself a great day. Like if that was going to an actual person, even though they didn't do the interview with you, they set you up with an AI interview, I would still thank them. I think that might actually do some good, but that's just me. Pretty Obnoxious says, I know that I didn't mean to offend Roberts. I know that robots and AI are coming in the future, but I want to know where can I get a job as a robotics tech, because those jobs should be at the top of the list in job posting sites. Excellent question, Pretty Obnoxious. Here's what you do. Now, earlier I was talking about something called informational interviews, right? If you're just joining me, informational interviews are not job interviews. In a job interview, you go because you're wanting to get a job out of it. In an informational interview, you're going because you're hoping to just simply get information, right? That's all you want. You don't want them to employ you. You're looking for answers. Now, you've got a question, okay? The question is, where can I find these robot tech jobs, okay? Who would know this? Maybe the CEO of a local robotics company or a industrial repair company that repairs, among other things, robots, right? So do a search for that using the process I gave like 10 minutes ago in this live stream, where you go on Google Maps, you type in you're trying to find employers. In your case, you're trying to find the locations and the names of all the companies around you that would do that kind of thing, right? And then you're going to use also the second step of the procedure I gave you, which was getting on LinkedIn. Now that you know the companies that repair robots in your hometown that are near you, see if you can find the name and contact information of their CEO using LinkedIn. You can then message them directly and you could say, hey, I would love to get your expert opinion on the robotics industry, where it's going, and what are some of the biggest challenges we're going to be dealing with. I would love to be able to get, say, 30 minutes of your time just to ask you this, and you can give me your expert opinion. Would you be able to spare me 30 minutes? You name the date, time, place, I will meet you. And you ask them this same question. The only difference is that, unlike me, that doesn't work in robotics, I can only give you general information. They would be able to give you much more specific information, and it would probably be a lot more accurate than anything I give you, because they not only work in that business, but they run a company in that business. So they know a lot about it and they know where it's going. It's their job to know. So they would best be able to tell you that. So that's how you get that information. And the other thing to come out of this is you now know how to do an informational interview. Any big question like this that you're wondering, that's very specific about jobs and, employment opportunities or business opportunities, you will know exactly how to get that information that might seem inaccessible to you. Okay? So that's what I recommend you look into. You're welcome, Mr. Friendly. Christy Anderson says, do you know, wait a minute. I can't remember if I explicitly thanked Pearl again, but because my feed just kept moving, but Pearl sent a super chat saying, hello, Bill. I just want to thank you once again for your time and your efforts. Your channel has been of help. Thank you to Pearl. Pearl is awesome. This is the second super chat that Pearl has sent me. I really appreciate it. It's great to see that kind of response. That's why I do this. That's what convinces me that this is actually worth my time. Okay, now I have to scroll down. So we were talking to Pretty Obnoxious. Okay, Christy Anderson. Do you know of an AI service that will do a resume for me? I'm 58, never have had to make one, let alone fill out an application. I have a wide and diverse set of experience, self-employed, now owner. Okay, well, listen, am I an expert on the latest AI tools and everything that's out there? No. But as a starting point, try ChatGPT. If I don't know if you've used ChatGPT before. Go to Google, presumably you know how to do that. Go to Google, type in ChatGPT. It'll take you to OpenAI's website where, they're the ones that created ChatGPT and, where you log in and all that. I think you can even use it as a guest, or whatever. So start there and say you can talk to it like you're talking to a person. Say, can you create a resume for me? Here, my experience is this, I've had these 5 jobs, and just give them names of them. And, and then, can you create like a placeholder resume for me? And then it will create it for you. And then you can start tweaking it and changing the data so it's accurate. And then eventually you'll end up with, a resume. Okay. So that's maybe what I would do if you're just trying to create a resume to start out with. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense. Yeah. Okay. Cedar Pass says, have you seen AI being proposed or used as an actual solution to a business problem that is rooted in customers? Seems like AI is being driven for the sake of AI, none of it hooked to problems. Well, I haven't used it for that. I know that digital marketers are using that kind of thing because my understanding is things like ChatGPT is that it's sort of crawling the web, and it's not just looking, at articles and things like this. It's also looking at posts and feeds on social networking. I believe it's doing that. And because of that, you can ask it questions like, I want to sell this product. Here's a description of the product. Can you come up with a tagline? One tagline, say 5 words, one 10 words, one 20 words, and one 50 words that would really sell this. Okay. You can ask it questions like that and it will come up with stuff. Now, the stuff I've seen is that it comes up with something that's okay. It doesn't set the world on fire, but it's usually adequate. So you can tie it to actual customer problems if that's what you're looking for. It does do that. And I know some people, namely digital marketers, are certainly using it for that. I'm not sure about other industries. I haven't personally seen people in a plumbing company use ChatGPT to write their marketing material. I haven't seen that, but I'm sure that's being done too. At a guess, I would say it is being used like that. Okay. And I do believe that people who are working at their jobs in, consulting or marketing or, sales or whatever, are using it as part of their job, just as a tool every day, like you would use a spell checker or grammar checker to assist them in doing their work. So yes, it is being used like that. Amy says, I've been working for 1 year as in an expert network. Should I continue in the same industry? I don't understand. What industry are you working in? Expert network? You'll have to clarify. Do you mean like networking, like IT or something? Or if you could let me know, and I'll be happy to answer. Deborah says, thank you. You're welcome. Absolutely welcome. User says, thank you for your helpful and honest insight. You're absolutely welcome, user. And that's a wonderfully intimate handle you have there. That's great and descriptive too. Leah, what are good questions to HH? By HH, do you mean HR? Like what? You got to give me a context. Are you talking about in a job interview or something? Like what do you ask them? If that is what you're asking, and this is kind of a stretch, but if that is what you're asking, great questions to ask are about the role itself. Like what would be your expectations for the person in this role to have complete after the, say, first 30 days, first 60 days, or first 90 days, right? That would be a good question. You could ask them about the industry, what are the challenges ahead for this industry? What are the biggest challenges for this company? That kind of thing. For the people that are in this role, what do you see as the most important personality trait or technical skill that they would need? Something like that. And then whatever they say, you try and convince them that you have it. There's things of that nature would be good. Pretty Obnoxious says, thank you for your time. I've gotten good info from the stream. Good. I try and do the stream every Monday. So I varied the time of it during the day, but usually in the morning. But I will probably have it at this time for the next couple of weeks. WYN66 says, hi, Bill, do you think a cover letter is required in the current job market? And if you send a cover letter, how would that affect the AI scanning? Oh, that's a good one. I don't think anyone really knows the answer to that. See, cover letters originally, it dates back to when you would send like a resume in an envelope through snail mail. So if someone just opened an envelope or an envelope, depending on your point of view, and a resume fell out, you wouldn't know like the context. So the cover letter was there to explain, hello, my name is X, and I'm applying for this job. I heard about this job from this source, and I've attached my resume, so hopefully you have that, and I'm hoping that you will select me. And the reason I'm applying is because of this and this. Like, it just gives some context, right? And it can also, like, you could put all kinds of stuff in there. You could put like a sort of Cliff's Notes summary of who you are. Like in one sentence, you could say like, I'm a highly skilled, Python developer who's developed apps for like, ID software and like some of these other like great software companies. Like you could put all kinds of stuff in there. But originally it's to explain the context. So the way it's worked for the last several years is that for most jobs you're applying to, where you're responding to a job ad, the cover letter, like if you're sending an email with your resume attached, the cover letter would be like the body of the email. It says, hello, like I'm applying for this job, job number, whatever. And please find my resume attached. I look forward to hearing back from you. And if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you. And then your contact information, your name and, phone number, contact information. So it just explained what you were doing. That was the purpose of the cover letter. It's kind of, I don't know if it's a modern thing, but it's kind of like a minority of times companies ask you to submit this big fancy cover letter where you have to talk about your personality and your motivations, and you have to they want you to summarize your entire resume in the cover letter. Like, a lot of that is just stupidity. It's stuff that you shouldn't have to do. And if they do require you to do that, I would think twice about like, is this job really worth doing all that for? Because that's a lot of work. So now, of course, people are using AI to just write a generic cover letter for you, and basically you send that. Now, the problem is that in the long run, it doesn't get you any further, because then they use AI to receive and read the cover letters and things you've sent. So you've got like one AI working for you that's trying to outwit an AI that's working against you. In the end, it doesn't matter. It's best to just bypass all of that crap and talk to a person and say, look, I got these skills. If you're looking for someone with those right now, give me a call. I've heard about you guys. I'd love to work for you. Let me know if you need any help. Other than that, have a great day. There's no need for all this garbage. This is all the cover letter silliness and AI and ATS. It's all done. It just adds a ton of expense to the company, and it's done to make up for people that don't really know how to assess a candidate properly, at the end of the day, namely recruiters. Recruiters, they're in my experience, recruiters, like, no offense to them, there's some great ones out there, but there's a lot of bad ones. They only serve one function, like HR employees in general, and that is to take care of your own employees and to assist you with the legal considerations of hiring and firing. That's all, and taking care of your employees, like benefits and all this kind of stuff. That's the only purpose they serve. The jury's really out on whether they help with the recruitment and selection process, because a lot of companies, especially small ones, they elect not to employ recruiters to do that because they don't really add value. What's the point of having someone who doesn't understand the job itself talk to potential candidates and weed them out? So, as I said at the beginning of the live stream, if it were me, I would advise people not to even play this game. Focus on networking, focus on the stuff that actually gets you somewhere, and not trying to outwit layers of AI ATS systems. Ask yourself this question. The candidates that are selected from that process, are they winners? Do they last? No. The data coming out of, the people that study these things has shown for the past several decades that employee turnover times are getting shorter and shorter and shorter. People are not staying. And the proportion of candidates that don't work out are going up, right? So the numbers are in, and these systems haven't been winning in those metrics, whereas you get like a hiring manager talk to a candidate directly, that usually produces just as good, if not better, results. The hiring manager may not understand employment law as much as a HR employee does, but they understand the job, and that makes up for it. So anyway, that's obviously my opinions of this stuff based on my observations in my career. Where did I leave off here? But that's an intelligent question. How do you say this? CS Tech? Hi, I just wanted to say thank you. Thanks to you, I get a really good job. I'm at the start of my career, still studying, and get a job that I dream of. Good. That's great. Thank you for giving me some feedback that it's helping. User says, when reaching out for the first time when networking, do you suggest attaching your resume already? Absolutely not. No. Who's going to read your resume? The only thing they need to know is what you say. It's like a couple of sentences. I can do this for you. Are you looking for someone? If you are, they're not going to say whether they are or not. But honestly, they're not. And the reality is that they might not be looking right now, but maybe they will in 3 months, right? So they're not going to tell you any of that. They're not going to give you any kind of information about them. Who discloses personal information about how you run your company to a stranger you never even met? You don't do that. But you say, look, if ever you're looking and you're looking for this, give me a call. Get back to me. Let me know, because I would love to work for you and I can do this, right? That's the easiest thing to get. You make it easy. You don't add all kinds of attachments and other things that they got to then feel they have to go through. It's like, no, why does this matter? I'm not even looking for someone right now. If in the future I am, I'll maybe get back to you, but I'm not going to go and find your resume and read it then. It's like, no, right? It's not a stupid question. It's actually a very smart question, but this is how people tend to behave on average. And in my experience, this is how people tend to behave. I built a consulting business doing this very thing. So I know what I'm talking about. But in my experience, just like a sentence or two max, and then, a nice, friendly, pleasant greeting, and that's it. That's all you need, right? You're not trying to get anything from them. You're just saying, if you ever need this, please let me know. Have a nice day. It's not salesy. It's actually kind of helpful, right? And it's very easy to deal with. You don't have to read documents. You don't have to jump through a bunch of hoops. Just, the most people that receive that message will not be looking for that exact thing right now, right? But a certain percentage will. It could be 5%, it could be 1%. But some people will, and they'll say, hey, maybe let's talk. Let's get together. Can you come to my office like tomorrow at 3 p.m.? Something like that. Let's talk. Or if you're trying to do an informational interview, what sometimes helps is, like a Starbucks that's kind of nearby. That's usually the best way to do an informational interview, is like a neutral ground, like a Starbucks. It means that they're willing enough to leave their office to come and meet you, right? That's what it signals. And it's also nice neutral ground. When you walk into someone's office on their turf and something, it'd be a little bit more intimidating. It's not quite 50-50. It's like, they're still in more of a position of power, right? So I did a lot of stuff at Starbucks, as you can tell. Amy says, I reach industry experts for consultations firms like Bain and the Big Four. Do you have some insights on this industry? What, like consulting for the Big Four? No, I haven't worked for the Big Four. I have employed people from the Big Four, at least 2 of the Big Four, to do my accounting and things like that. But no, I mean, I actually dealt with a lot of people back in the day. I dealt with a lot of people from Arthur Andersen before their big fall. I kind of colored my opinion of people that work for the Big Four because they have some real conflicts. But no, that's not very much to go on. They're exactly what you would expect. Like, they have the accounting and financial services kind of side of their business. Then they have the consulting side of their business. I don't know too much about the consulting industry for the Big Four, other than what I've read in books, like accounts of different business things and their involvement getting some of the Big Four consultants in, and what they talked about, things like where should I locate my headquarters, things like that. And my impression was that they employed a lot of people sort of right out of school. So they're very good with the theory, and they're very good in the sense that they might have like some very smart people working there. But I don't know how they score on like having a ton of like real boots on the ground experience. I'm not sure. Maybe they do, but I'm not sure. But I'm not really in that world. Like, I'm just, I work in the small and medium business, and you don't really need any of that. So, I mean, if you have people that have an MBA and, the other thing was that it wasn't necessarily the Big Four, but you get people that work for, what were they called? It wasn't Ernst & Young, but some other players that supposedly have databases of contacts and, things that are going on in the industry. And I sort of got burned on the promise. I bought some information from them when I was like a CEO and stuff. And it turned out to be not very useful. It was kind of out of date and just stuff that didn't really help you. So I had a very kind of negative kind of impression of that stuff at the end of it. Because they try and position themselves like they have all the answers, and they have all this insight into, like, if in the M&A world and all this kind of stuff, if you're looking for to sell something, how to price it all out and how to get like potential buyers. And they claimed to know all that stuff. And in the end, it didn't really seem that they did. Anyway, that's all I'll say about that here. Thanks for giving us the employer's perspective. It's easy to understand that way. Yes, that's something that I think people really need. You need to know what it looks like from the other side of the table, what recruiters actually end up doing, and what makes them think the way they do. Right? Like, for example, something you might have heard is that recruiters, when they do look at a resume, they only look at it for a few seconds, right? Before they decide like yay or nay, right? Now, on the surface, when they first tell you that, it might seem like they're a bunch of heartless fools that would do something like that, very callous. But when you realize that they've got 300 resumes to evaluate that day, or that morning, you know what I mean? They got hundreds of applicants for each job that they're running, each vacancy, and they're running 5 vacancies. And today in the afternoon, their whole afternoon is filled up with interviews. So they've got to do all the filtering and callbacks and all that in the morning. And that doesn't leave a lot of time to like scan and read resumes. And they've got hundreds of resumes to go through, right? So when you see it from their side, it's like, oh, okay, I get it. You'd love there to be a sort of camera in the room as they're going, like you see what's going across their desk and like what they have to do and how much work they have, and this is all between phone calls and reading emails and all this kind of stuff. So when you see that, you kind of go, oh, okay, I get it. So my stuff really has to pop. They should see, like in 5 seconds of looking at my resume, they need to see all the essentials that I want them to see. So if I highlight this and that and this and that, or I make it really big or, whatever, maybe it'll jump out at them and they'll put me in the pile to consider deeper later on, something like that. But it's seeing how they work that informs you maybe what you need to do more. That would be something maybe for me to try and talk about more. Okay, I'm going to need to wrap this up soon. I got a couple more questions. Cedar Pass says, to clarify my previous question, in my opinion, for the overwhelming resources versus the money being used for AI as a solution, it doesn't seem as if core user customer problems have been identified. AI as a solution, whatever. Well, yeah, that's because it's still in development. It's like, look at the internet. When the internet came out, I mean, you would be, most people, like you as a generic term, you all would be kind of surprised at how basic and useless it was when it first came out. But to the people of the time, simply the fact that you could like type and have it go over like halfway around the world and someone could see it, like that was just blowing their minds, right? But in terms of how actually useful was it, the answer is not very. And it wasn't very useful for the first several years. And that's why a lot of companies overlooked it and thought that it would just be this toy that wouldn't affect anything. And it, in reality, became this stealthy thing that sort of all of a sudden took everyone by storm as to how useful it was. I mean, look what happened to the music industry. It obliterated the music industry within 2 years, I think. Like it was a multi-billion-dollar industry and it just went to zero within like a couple of years because they pretended it didn't exist until it was too late, right? So but my point is that it's normal to underestimate these changes when they first start emerging, right? But don't be fooled. It's going to be, if you still feel it's not really powerful enough to solve the problems you'd like to see, you just wait, because it will get there, just a question of time. And I'm not an expert on AI technology, but I'm just going by the pattern that these things always follow. They said the same thing about web services. Instead of selling software that runs on your computer natively, it was all going into the browser and it was all being done on servers. And you just use the web browser as like a sort of interface to the software. And that took a long time for people to see. And when it did, it finally gained momentum and it got to that inflection point where it was starting to take over. A lot of people still didn't see it. They pretended that it wasn't a thing, and they still continued to release traditional box software that ran natively and all this kind of stuff. So that's how these things always go. It always seems like, it's a toy, it's a joke, it will never take over until it does. You wait like 5 years and it'll be pretty sophisticated, judging by the progress it's made so far. Cedar Pass continues and says a problem that is yet to be identified. Otherwise, it's just a tool that is over-marketed, overbought, and not aligned into reality. Well, I wouldn't say that. Maybe in some circles it is over-marketed and overbought and not aligned to reality, but I can tell you for a fact, you don't need to take my word for this. Look at the job losses that have happened in some industries because it has replaced people. So it's not over-marketed and it's not overbought, certainly in those places. Is that universal? No, but it certainly could be if the current trajectory continues. That's all I'll say. Okay, so that's why it's still being talked about, because people would love to ignore it. People of my generation would love to ignore this thing and not have to learn anything new. But the reality is you can't stick your head in the sand because it's changing things. It's giving tiny companies that you never thought were a serious competitor, it's giving them an edge over you. They're able to do some of this stuff like you're talking about, analyze customers and come up with marketing material and come up with solutions and auto-generate like a lot of material for them to assist them in producing the higher work output. It's able to help them in ways that you never foresaw, and it's kicking your ass. You know what I'm saying? And, pardon my Anglo-Saxon. And you're going to have to adapt to that, which means you have to adopt it, basically, because trying to brute force it the other way may not be economically viable. Anyway, that's where I think we're going to leave things for today. Sorry about the technical kerfuffle and the fact that I can't see my own comment stream. I think that Streamlabs OBS really has some work to do in fixing their software, which is the software I'm using to do streaming. Anyway, thank you for being here. You guys are awesome. Thank you to Pearl and everybody who asked questions. And I will be back next week. So if you do have any questions about the whole job search process, let me know and we will go from there. Okay. Thank you. I wish you all nothing but the best. Take care.